Welcome to another episode of
Theatrum Catholicum Reviews.
There we go, okay. We're here at the library, Steve Casey and I. Our first episode was on talking about Nefarious, and today we're going to do a review on this movie called The Conflict. Now, this movie, I think, was a made-for-television movie in Ireland. From what I read, it was made and released in 1972, I think, and it stars Martin Sheen. He's the more notable name. This movie was based off a book called The Conflict, or also I've heard it say Catholics, a Fable. The person that wrote the book, he also wrote the screenplay for this movie. When I saw this movie, I was in 10th, 11th grade, so around 2003, 2002, and I found it a very interesting movie because this movie is about a conflict of sorts between basically traditional Catholicism and liberal Catholicism. It is a futuristic movie. It takes place during the year 2000. Doesn't necessarily have the most happiest of endings. Basically, there is these group of Irish Catholic monks that are doing the traditional Latin Mass, and they have to do it outside, like on this hill or on this island, because there's so many people that are coming from out of country, from America, people from Nigeria, all over the world, South America, even America, people from Boston. You see everybody holding little signs like, please bring the Latin Mass back to Boston or to whatever. And here we have a priest, a very modern priest, who is from the same order. He's like the Pope's representative of this order of these monks. And he's there to basically tell these priests, these monks, that they can't do the Latin Mass anymore. What did you think of this movie when you first saw it?
Well, I first saw this movie several years ago, and without really knowing exactly what it was about. It was kind of unexpected that I actually saw it in the first place, but I was very interested and surprised at how well it depicted the fight going on at the time between those who are trying to keep tradition, who are trying to be faithful to what the church has always taught, what the church has always done. The movement of modernism that was seeking to displace those traditions in the name of obedience from even the highest authorities in the church. And for the time it was made in the early 1970s, when really all of these conflicts were just starting to take shape, and really what we call the traditional movement was honestly in its infancy at the time, it really was visionary.
Yeah, it really hit home.
How it depicted, especially given how it portrayed all of the different conflicts going on.
There was like two divided camps, either obey, follow the Novus Ordo, or from Vatican IV.
Right.
Or get shut down. I mean, because that's what it comes down to.
But the way those arguments were summarized from all of the different perspectives in the film was incredibly well done, considering what they had to go on in those times. The fact that they were able to summarize all the different arguments, all the different situations caused by the reasoning that was being portrayed was really phenomenal, I thought. It did an incredible job of displaying the fight at the time that's still going on today over 50 years later.
In a way, it can be a wake-up call. Right?
Yes.
Maybe those that are spiritually lax, or those who are not sure what Mass they should go to even. I mean, there's just so many good arguments about why, like, the Mass is in Latin. Why is it in Latin? Mm-hmm. What happens during the Mass? It's all about, the priest doing the unbloody sacrifice of Calvary on the cross and bread and wine changed into the body and blood of our Lord. Whereas this new priest is like, well, that doesn't happen at the Mass. We know that, it's just a symbol. It's not real. And that really makes it feel like Protestants who don't believe that bread and wine are changed into the body and blood of Christ at Mass. Speaking from, at one time, being a Protestant and just saying, oh yeah, it's just symbolic. Yeah, we'll just pass the wafers around the whole church in little sippy cups of grape juice or whatever. And it's not what Christ wanted. So it's not what Christ intended. I'm not Protestant anymore, but I do remember that thinking going around and stuff. So this movie has a lot of great quotations that kind of explain a lot. It's just amazing to find this. Wasn't a Hollywood movie. It was done in Ireland and things like that. But there's a lot of great quotes, and we're not able to delve into every single one of them, but we want to go through a few of them right now with you.
So when the Roman priest is landing on a flying machine at the monastery, yes,
Yeah.
he's coming out with his, his more modern appearance, like he's
Yeah.
looking a little more 1960s-ish, kind of hip.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Roman priest is asking the abbot of the community if he would have liked to have missed the century, meaning the
Not
20th,
yeah.
the innovative 20th century.
Yeah.
And the abbot said, I should think not, that under the English, unless you had the lust to be a martyr, it was not the time to be a Catholic priest in Ireland. And here there's a striking quote. It shows that the abbot seems to, having been aware of the Roman priest's visit, he seems to be open to changing with the times at the monastery. He's not valuing what the church's eternal missionary spirit of saving souls despite what consequences it could have, the true bravery, the heroism it takes to do that.
Yeah.
And he just kind of shuns it, saying that basically those times they were difficult, and we don't want necessarily really to have a part in that.
Right. So you can kind of just see how, in the eyes of the Roman priest, played Martin Sheen, that maybe he feels like he can change or get, the head of the monks to be on his side to obey and things like that.
Right. Having known of the traditional mass that was going on the island, and all of those from different countries that were coming to attend it, he sees that he needs to kind of put this monastery in its place. It's not adapting with the changing times. It's not what's needed to reach the people, apparently, of today.
Yeah, yeah. Ireland has had its share of martyrdom and things like that. I mean,
sure, and even maybe a dry martyrdom, as Archbishop Lefebvre would say, for holding on to the faith despite very significant hardships. Yeah. And we see that today, even from within the church, that often if you are trying to maintain the church's traditions, that you are stifled from even those who hold authority within the church.
Our Pope Leo, and hopefully he can, let's just say, be a little bit more open to tradition than his predecessor, Pope Francis. But
right, and that he can reverse the course the church has been on since the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah, right. What is another good quote?
Is when the Roman priest meets Father Matthew, who has been saying the traditional Latin Mass on the island for all of these faithful, all of these pilgrimage groups from all these different countries. They have planes flying in from all these different countries. It's a huge deal because it's so difficult to have the traditional Latin Mass. It's a really remarkable circumstance given what's going on in the church. Very reminiscent of what actually was going on in those days right after the Second Vatican Council, where you are hard-pressed after the church experienced such a great period of growth leading all the way up to the end of Pius XII's pontificate. Then all of a sudden there was, within a period of a decade or so, there was no traditional Latin Mass at all to attend. You really had to build this back up from the ground up.
Yeah.
And we see in this example, Father Matthew saying Mass for all these pilgrims who are coming from all over the world. So the Roman priest is asking to see him, to want to know his reasoning, just why he's continuing on with this old fad that's going on. And Father Matthew explains to the priest that we're saying Mass. We're going out to the island the way we always have. And saying Mass facing God.
Right, not people.
Not versus populum, facing the people, since the priest changes bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. And so Father Matthew is quickly shooed away by the abbot, and the Roman priest and the abbot are then speaking to each other, trying to make some sense of all this. And so the abbot is saying to the Roman priest that they call you an inconquistador.
Oh.
And the Roman priest, in good humor, remarks, well, it's not the beginning of the 13th century, but the end of the 20th century. He then makes a remark, the Roman priest does, that it's hard to define exactly what is heresy today.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And the abbot remarks good-naturedly, but very revealingly, that yesterday's orthodoxy is today's heresy. And we see that very often. What's condemned within the church structures today is really just Catholic tradition very often.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of novelties of really clear heresies and errors, not only against doctrine today, but even against just the foundational morality that has built the Western culture.
Yeah, but no, I mean, there's great confusion. It just seems like the modernism has really creeped in. We're not saying that the Pope is not the Pope. We're not saying that. But if you never know when you walk to any kind of normal Catholic church, normal, but like Novus Ordo, English, non-traditional Latin Mass church, are you going to get a good sermon, or are you going to get a sermon that seems like there's a little heresy in it, So.
There's a great virus that has ravaged inside the church, and to have the grace to build up those immunities to be able to resist the virus, to know what the church has always taught, to want to be faithful to the church, while recognizing that the church has not failed. The church is still there. We cannot leave the church. We cannot declare ourselves the church. But to remain within the church but yet not compromise for those principles of faith that have been.
The church's, one of its marks is indefectibility. That Christ will always be there with Peter, helping Peter, guiding Peter, throughout the centuries, and then Peter's, of course, the other popes, succeeding popes.
Church will always be the visible structure, but like Christ, the church is to go through a passion. It will honestly be disfigured in such a way like Christ was disfigured on the cross, seemingly almost barely recognizable, but yet it'll still be the church. So even just as Christ was still Christ on the cross, he was testing our faith, whether to see who would remain with them.
We can't throw out the baby with the bathwater, and so we do have to, have faith that God is in control, and Our Lady will help guide us in the church. The head of the monastery, he goes to Lourdes.
I believe he went there with a special request, and we know it wasn't answered in the way that he would have liked. And so
that's a big thing we can talk about that, does God hear our prayers? Why doesn't God answer all of our prayers?
And that can be a great testament to our faith, that if we can persevere, because oftentimes what we think is best for us, despite if it obviously seems very good for us, is yet not what is truly best for us. And God will always answer our prayers in tune to what is truly best for us, which is His holy will.
Because it was interesting, because sometime after this they said that the Roman priests had told the monks that they had to shut Lourdes down.
Well, I think in this fictional circumstance, it was that basically modernism had so stifled any true sense of the supernatural in the church that Lourdes wasn't valued anymore, and it was basically seen as some kind of place that's from the past. It's from a spirituality that has since passed us. And since we can see kind of more of the human side of everything, and everything is much more man-centered, and our ideas of God are very different, our ideas of dependence on God are very different, then Lourdes really doesn't matter to man now. Well, we see very much a lack of interest, though, in them. In a way, for many holy sites, we see all of the churches, all of the Catholic sites that have been closed down are very much marginalized, and or at least don't nearly have the same influence they used to. So at least figuratively speaking, we can certainly see this in our world today.
There's a section in here talking about why Latin's used in the Mass.
Because the Catholic Church is universal and Latin is the universal language of the Church. That actually, by allowing each country or each community even to have its own language, its own way of celebrating, of creating this apparent diversity that actually truly stifles the true diversity of the Church, which is all kinds of faithful from different cultures, different backgrounds, uniting around what is common in the church, the common language of the church, the common worship, and now we just have disunity.
Yeah.
because of that. The Mass is unrecognizable not only from different countries from each other, but even from different parishes within the same town.
Right. One of the things they mentioned was guitar masses.
Yes,
And
which is
so-
they're true to life.
Yes, it is. Yes, I remember when I was Novus Ordo, went to this they call it the teen mass.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if you remember hearing about
Teen
those.
masses.
Yeah, life teen
Oh, yeah,
masses.
yes.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, and you know, stupid. I was, I don't know, 12 or something like that. Went there and then just this is before my family and I became traditional, but just like, you know, just everybody just up around the altar, which is a table, you know, and just kind of like swaying back and forth and singing Kumbaya. There was some kind of priest who online would like post, oh, there was a clown mass here, or there was, you know, a pontoon mass over here, and just all these kinds of, and it's like, you know, it's just terrible. I don't know if you've heard of abuses like that, you know.
Yes, there are many instances of those kinds of new masses that are very well known. Well, no new mass really is exactly the same. It invites so much of an individual
That's right. I mean,
character.
there's like 6 Eucharistic prayers, and there's,
you know, the character of the priest, his charisma, very much makes a difference on the individual mass because it invites that. It diminishes the sacrificial nature of the mass and truly makes it more of a, at least hinting at, more of a celebration of man, even a common meal.
Right.
And not so much a sacrifice on Calvary. Even if it doesn't explicitly say so, it very much leads in that direction.
Have you read the Ottavani Intervention?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if our audience knows, but the new Mass was made with the help of possibly a Freemasonic cardinal and at least a couple Protestant ministers and anybody else?
Six Protestant ministers. And, you know, they try their best to gather the perspectives from all of the different non-Catholic sects and even otherwise to appease those outside of the church, to make the Catholic Mass very similar to their service.
Right. And we can kind of see with the Martin Sheen's character that he also mentions a very like ecumenical gathering, like the First World Buddhist something.
The Catholic and Buddhist gathering, which Father General of the order of these monks has been invited to be president of. And this is a big stumbling block now, because Father General of this order of these monks, the Buddhists don't like the fact that there's this monastery that he's the superior of who's saying the traditional Mass not wanting to adapt to this new ecumenical reality. So this is a pretty large reason that the Roman priest is visiting, because this is a large stumbling block. The traditional Mass, Catholic tradition, is not really friendly to these ecumenical gatherings.
Right.
This new ecumenism.
Yeah.
Not just reaching out to others.
There's
charity.
There's nothing wrong with helping them, but if all you're concerned with is just, oh well, you're Lutheran, you know, I'm Catholic, it doesn't matter, you know, you can stay Lutheran and you'll be fine.
It's all okay.
Yeah, and so like things like Legion of Mary, I actually went to the Legion of Mary once, and some of what they talked about was trying to do something charitable for like the local kids in the area. It wasn't in St. Louis, it was somewhere else.
Yes.
And then after they like played ball with them, they were going to feed them, and then they was going to try to give them a short catechism lesson. I mean, I think that's what it should be about. Is that if you're going to reach out to these groups, you can feed them, clothe them, but also give them the gospel.
Right.
Or
the
something.
faith is
true
what
faith,
ultimately comes first.
Yeah. And one of the other things they were saying in the movie was liberation theology.
Yes.
Which I guess is a movement that gained a lot of traction in South America parishes, where in a way it was arming the poor to rise up and fight against the government.
Right, and overthrow them.
And so it's like arming the priests with guns to get involved. And the Roman priest, Martin Sheen, he's all for that. And he's
thought of going down there himself.
Right, and be a martyr in that respect. And it's like, it's
a martyr for what they call social justice. That's the reason he uses. But it's overthrowing the government and entering into all these political causes while keeping the faith purely secondary. Right.
which I know we'll review this eventually probably, but the Cristeros.
Yes.
Okay. Were they trying to overthrow atheistic communism?
They were resisting the atheistic government's
Yeah.
attack on them to not have any public religion, or really any religion at all,
Yeah.
to not be able to say Mass, to live their Catholic lives.
Yeah. That is the true, if you're going to go that way, you know, there's a right way and there's a wrong way, you know.
They were resisting clearly unjust, barbaric orders from their
Right.
government that prevented them from living their Catholic faith,
Right.
so that they could live their faith
Right.
and have Mass.
Right. There was a comment where the IRA is mentioned, and I think Father Matthew said, well, if I would have done what you want to do, I would have just joined the IRA.
I believe Father Matthew's point in general was, not knowing as much about certain of these political associations, but I think Father Matthew's point was, if I wanted to join some more radical political cause, I would have gone into politics.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't have joined the church.
Yeah.
I joined the church to do the work
Right. The
of the
church is first.
not just join these
Yeah.
kind of political fringe movements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which usually don't keep the principles of the church at all.
Yeah.
They're more seeking of a man-centered social justice and not truly of the rights of God. They're advocating for really a Marxist communist regime, really,
Yeah.
not for a Catholic state.
So there's this one part where all these monks are getting together to do a, all-night adoration.
Yes.
And to ask for them to still be able to pray the Latin Mass and not have to, give up what they love and what they shouldn't have to give up. And then when the main monk finds that out, he basically tells everyone they have to go to bed because they have to get up early the next morning and they have to, feed the goats and catch the fish and get eggs from the chickens and things like that. They all go away. It's kind of funny because Martin Sheen's character is kind of hiding, like behind a pillar or somewhere, and he's just listening. And there's an argument about obedience, true obedience, and false obedience, sort of. And then the head monk, the abbot, is saying, no, you have to stop this prayer and you have to go to bed because this is a vow of obedience and things like that. You have to follow. And I mean, wow. I mean, where would we be, Steve, if Archbishop Lefebvre had said that I'm going to, I'm not going to obey this thing. Evil triumphs if good men do nothing, Edmund Burke, Archbishop Lefebvre, he was at Vatican II. I think he was one of the people who was trying to present some kind of like traditional-minded things.
In a group of prelates, the Cetus Internationalis Patrum, were fighting to preserve tradition within the church, basically, to allow the texts of the Second Vatican Council to fight that they be as traditional as they possibly could, despite the very outnumbered circumstances that were going on.
Yeah. How, as traditional Catholics, are we disobedient to the church because we go to Latin Mass? No,
because the traditional Mass is the Mass of all time. It is the Mass that has been said for 2,000 years. Yeah. And the new Mass seeks, at least objectively, to compromise what Catholics have always believed in. As you pray, you believe. Mm-hmm. That's simply how it works.
Lex credendi,
yeah. So the higher obedience here, and this is a principle that the film discusses brilliantly because it lays out the opposing argument. Yeah. That basically if you promised obedience, that means you have to obey me. Basically no matter what. But this is easily an exaggerated false obedience because obedience is first and foremost to God.
That's right.
If a superior who has his authority directly from God obliges you to do something that's wrong or that which the church has not always done or the church doesn't believe in truly, then it would actually be necessary to disobey while holding true obedience.
Right.
So that's what Archbishop Lefebvre masterfully pointed out. And by his actions, he preserved Catholic tradition truly for us up to this day. Yeah. I mean, yes, where would we be? I mean, the principles of obedience and faith, we see just even for those who've tried to keep a semblance of tradition being approved in the church, but yet accepting, the Second Vatican Council, the new Mass in principle, we see how limited that is. And you really can't live a full traditional life doing that. And even now, with Traditionis Custodes, Pope Francis's motu, that's not being tolerated even again. Soon enough, if you compromise with principle, then, which you even do have, you're at risk of losing that too.
A lot of prayers for our Pope Leo, that he does the right thing.
Yes.
He follows what God is telling him to do. And
it's the only path the church has forward. We see how the church is struggling in many ways, about all the Catholics that have fallen away, the closed parishes.
Well, and a lot of them are falling away. Like, what is this? This is a joke, I mean, it's just like,
they see nothing to fight for.
Yeah, that's right.
And you see all of the young people, which this movie makes the point of.
Yeah.
All of these young people are going on pilgrimage to Father Matthew's Mass.
Because
and they don't
true.
want the modernism.
Yeah. I read somewhere that like a lot of the young people, they have a choice between, Hoci Novus Ordo or Traditional Latin Mass. Oh wow, that looks neat. Yeah, let's, and they're thronged to it. They just like, they're rushing to the Latin Mass once they see it.
But what is there for the young people to fight for?
There's altar girls and I'm telling a lot of stories, I guess. Sorry, Steve. But the weekend that I was like preparing to get confirmation, and all the confirmants, we were on 8th grade or something like that, and it was boys and girls just mixing together and everything. There was parents there and they didn't do anything really, and so there was just bad stuff happening all the time. And I remember that Sunday Mass, I was going up for communion, and these two girls in front of me, they were just laughing to each other, just talking, and like they're about to receive a communion. And the Novus Ordo priest, at least he gave them like a stern look, like, you should not be doing this. But they're like, oh, okay, and they received communion in the hand and stuff. And it's just like, and like, after that, I think that was like the final straw. Basically, it was like, well, we're going to get you confirmed, and then we're going to try to find a Latin Mass somewhere, basically, because they received a newspaper prescription out of blue, from like the Remnant or Catholic Family News, and they're like, oh wow, they didn't know that, the traditional Latin Mass was still around, and eventually I made my way, but it was like, that was just like the last straw, just like, the kids think it's a joke, the old man, the Novus Ordo and things, so. Anyways, any other last quotes? We want to talk about the ending. I know, I'm sorry, I went on story time mode, I guess. Sorry. What do you think is the best crowd for this movie?
I would say it's those who see that things are not quite right in the church.
Yeah.
Something's just amiss.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, and this film does a brilliant job of displaying the conflicting arguments that were taking place in the early 1970s, basically right after Vatican II and the new Mass came on the scene, and there's just this kind of overthrowing. There's a great it's almost like a 180 going on. There's so much confusion. 180 of what the church has always stood for, and there's just confusion. Saying you can imagine those who lived under so many good holy popes. And then this happens after Catholic tradition was so cemented in society with the traditional Latin Mass all throughout the world only 10 to 15 years before.
Yeah.
And you had so many Catholic programs and Catholic groups.
So many missionaries.
All around the world. And the faith, in a way, had spread up to the middle of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Greater in a way than it had ever had before. It was kind of like a Palm Sunday of sorts in the church,
Yeah.
And then you have this situation. So this film does a brilliant job of depicting those arguments and giving us also arguments.
Right,
because it shows what Father Matthew is reasoning, what the monks are reasoning.
Yeah.
And considering it's, a film, a production like this,
Right.
they do an incredible job of doing so. So for someone who sees that things are kind of amiss in the church, or someone who is kind of conflicted about the whole obedience versus faith argument, basically, like how far do we go with obedience? This film contains very great arguments about that.
Right. Maybe like 6-year-olds might not be able to understand a lot of these, arguments, reasoning, logic maybe, but there's nothing wrong in this. I mean, the only thing in this movie, if we could say something that is not as good, is that it seems like the main abbot has lost his faith. The ending scene is that he says, he gathers all of his, monks around and says, let's go into church and let's pray. And he hasn't prayed in like 8 years or something like that, or 10 years or something. And so he starts the Our Father prayer, but then like halfway through it, he just kind of like stops.
He can't finish it.
Yeah, he can't finish it. So I don't know, maybe if you are a certain person that you don't have a strong faith, if you feel like that would be a detriment to you, watching, somebody an abbot who should have a lot of faith who doesn't, then maybe not watch this movie. But I think Steve has said a lot of things that would show why this would be a good movie to watch sometime. So this movie I found out is on YouTube. I think the whole movie, I saw a link about it. So
Yes.
We'll try. I guess there's a link on Nefarious as well, but
Yes, there is.
but for the conflict, I'll try to put it on there. And then if you have 70 minutes, I think that's how long the movie is, 72, something like that.
Right. I would like to say it's also helpful to appreciate the fight that we're in and what has led to Catholic tradition growing around the world. Because really, after the tsunami brought on by Vatican II and the new Mass, in the 1970s, Catholics who held fast to tradition had to pick up from truly the remnants lying about. They had to build from the ground up, truly like what Christ said about a mustard seed. They basically had to build straight up from nothing, almost, really, in a way, compared to what they had in the church structures only a few short years beforehand. And it would have been easy to just give up. It would have been easy to despair. But they truly persevered. They hung in there. And they had masses celebrated in hotel rooms, a lot of our original traditional chapels.
People's houses to start out with.
Yes, and they were attacked by the diocese usually for not going along with the new Mass and everything. They were told they were schismatic, they were excommunicated. They had the book thrown at them. They had everything against them, seemingly, but they kept the faith. And we have them to thank for how much Catholic tradition has grown throughout the world. Because even though there are some instances of Latin Masses being canceled today, there is so much awareness of the traditional Mass, and we have so many thriving churches, especially with Archbishop Lefebvre's priests, that truly are oases. Yes, the Society of St. Pius X, they're truly oases in this, this desert of the modern world, and this virus afflicting the church. We have these thriving centers of Catholic tradition by which Catholic families can truly thrive, that we can receive a good Catholic education, we can learn about our faith, spread the faith, participate in truly good Catholic endeavors, organizations.
We have traditional confirmations and
all the traditional
lots of orders of nuns, all working together. Religious, so brothers, and
it's truly remarkable, and that continues to grow. This work continues to grow. So there's so much to be encouraged by, and we have so much to thank those who came before us, who truly allowed this to help build this up for us to have, to profit from. And it's our responsibility to continue this, because we see when you don't appreciate it, you'll most likely lose it. So and we're still in such a pivotal time, more than ever, in the church and in the world, all the paganness around us. So we truly have a duty to be in prayer, to persevere, despite all of the difficulties that we encounter within the society and in the church. So we need to appreciate that.
And our Lord told us that I will not leave you orphans. Great saints, doesn't matter if they're, some of them, it doesn't matter if they're officially canonized or not. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching our podcast and joining with us on this journey, episode 2. And thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it so much. Thanks for being here and all your insight. So, Well, take care and God bless you. Bye.